Hey y'all, I'm Jeffrey Rickman. I have my own podcast I do called Plain Spoken, but this is not on that channel. I just had this set up and I was like, hey, I should record something for the Heartland Annual Conference. We're getting together this weekend. We're going to be approving a budget. And I always feel like it's really forced to just show up sight unseen and try and make sense of things and make votes, fly off the cuff. So I contacted Brad Kirk, like it's the day before annual conference. And I said, hey, man, do you want to, he's the finance chair. I said, do you want to do like a short segment, kind of helping people walk through the budget so that they show up feeling like they know what it's about? And so we both committed to keep this under 30 minutes. The intent here is for conference delegates and other members of the Heartland Annual Conference just to know what the conference leadership is doing with the money, what the plan is, what's going to be presented to the delegates in a couple days on the plenary floor of General Conference. And the intention here is just to be transparent, to earn the trust that's asked for in the coming years. And to that end, Brad Kirk, who, as I said, is the finance chair for the conference, said he'd be willing to join me. So, Brad, thanks for joining me. How are you today, brother?
I'm doing well. I'm thankful to have a chance to share and be accessible and open, and also hopefully have a great annual conference. We really want to enjoy our time together, but at the end of the day, we still have to get voting and business done. So it's part of it.
Absolutely. And we'll do a good job thanks to you. And before we do anything, I just want to thank you for serving and leading in this capacity, because you are a full-time pastor as well over at the church. It's not Kingsman, it's got King in it. What is it?
Kingman. It's we're located about 45 minutes west of Wichita, just down the highway. It's a little town, about 3,000 people, county seat, and I've been here 6 years in the Kingman Methodist Church. It's actually named after a former chief justice, but United States Supreme Court justice, I believe.
Cool.
Anyway, it's a great little town. My wife and I live here with our 3 young children, and loving ministry here and the church. So.
Well, it's wonderful. Like I said, thank you for doing this on top of your usual pastoral duties. And so we're just going to get right into it. I'm going to share my screen. We're going to be looking at the conference journal, and we're just on page 1 right here. That's what everybody should see. And then I'm going to go down to page 13 is where it begins. And so let's see. Here it is, page 13. It begins with the year-end financials for 2023. It shows giving starting, well, in October, it was at 60,000, went down to a little over, it looks like about 30,000, and then about 18,000. That was just the last 3 months of 2023. And then it's just a report on all of the 2023 budget right there. So is there anything that people need to take note? Are we even going to have to approve this 2023 budget?
And I can't say that I understand exactly all of the if we'll need to vote on this. I know that we want to share a report. I know the report's being made. Essentially, we had in 2023 an income of $151,688, and rounding just slightly. And then our expenses were 49,205, which created that surplus that you see of 103, which really gave us a great footing to come into 2024 without we came in with some confidence. We came in with some not really reserves as much as just some operating income to spend.
Right.
So we start off well.
Okay. So the only reason we would need to vote on this is if some of the figures need to be adjusted from this report?
I don't believe so. I believe that's pretty much straightforward.
Okay.
And I got to give a lot of credit to, sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, go ahead.
I got to give a lot of credit to our treasurer, Carrie, and previous treasurer, Tom Junk, and also to Bridget and to Jordan and in the office for putting together the conference journal and doing it well, because they really put together the reports in such a way that I think they're pretty straightforward. And I really encourage everyone, go through them, read them, look at them, and not only this video, which is going to be an asset, but also just go over them, because unless we spend time reading them, it'll be hard in that moment to get a full picture. But that's why I'm glad we're here to do this.
Yeah, exactly. And I have more of a finance mind than most people do, but even if I don't look at it before I get to annual conference, I'm flying at the seat of my pants and afraid I'm not seeing things. So this is really helpful. Friends, if you are not, it's just occurring to me that a lot of you probably don't even know where this document is. So I need to show you if you go to, and I shouldn't have stopped screen sharing. So I'm going to take you back to my screen and I'm going to pull up my um, internet browser and we're going to go to heartlandgmc.org. All right, so I'm dragging this up here so y'all can see what that looks like. This, if you just go to heartlandgmc.org, put it in your browser, and then I found it by going to Events Annual Conference 2024, clicking on that, and then the annual conference packet is right there. So this is where you can get your own copy. You can download it if you need to. That's what that button does right there. Download it. That's the exact same document that we're looking at. So we just covered the 2023 budget. Now we're going down to page 14, which is the 2024 amended budget. So lead us through that, Brad.
Absolutely. We approved the 2024 budget at the convening conference in, wasn't it October last year? And we did so, or was it November? I can't.
It don't matter.
It doesn't matter. But when we approved that, we had 165 churches, if I remember correctly, and we based that. That was set up by the TCAT, who put together a budget. And the reality was it was really hard to put together a budget for something that's never existed before. We had some understandings because we've come out of a system, but we're trying to do things differently. We're trying to do things more streamlined, simple, lower cost, leaving more resources in the local church. And so because of that, setting up a new budget required them to kind of, what are the priorities to do that work? And so doing that required them to put together a budget kind of a little bit blind, because we're building this bridge while we're on it. And we're still building the bridge because we don't have a full year's data and spending to have a great understanding of what actually does it cost. The best we can do is make good educated guesses and go forward from there, because at the end of the day, none of us knows. None of us has done an annual conference budget on our own, like for the GMC for the Heartland area. None of us have done that. So because of that, they put this together based on what they expected the connectional funding to be at 3%, which the rates are not changing from this year to next year. And we're not asking for that, but it's 3% for the annual conference. It's 1% of the Global Methodist Church denomination. So 4% overall. So 3% coming to the annual conference we expected. And so they said, what would 75% of the actual income be like for a number? And so they based the current budget that we're operating off of on that number. What we've realized is that 5 months into this year, there's some amendments we need to make to that. So this is what we have brought. This is the work of the Finance and Administration Committee for the annual conference, and we came together and thought about it. The real changes on this is on page 14. You'll see that. So from January to April of this year, we had $252,000 of income, of which $193,772 was for connectional funding and budget. Okay,
is that reflected somewhere on here? That's not.
I don't know if it's on there,
okay.
But this is from the reports that we have, and that's through April. So there'll be more by the time we get to the end of May. But that's that last report. All this is to say that we have more churches now. We actually have 200. I actually found out today we have 208 churches now in the annual conference.
Oh wow, that's great.
From 165 churches to 208, which is, praise the Lord. Because of that, we can expect that there's probably going to be more income for the annual conference as well, more resources.
Yeah.
And that also, we believe, after seeing the faithfulness of the annual conference, the faithfulness of our churches, and from what I've heard the treasurer saying is she's gotten checks that have been a few dollars, and she's had obviously some larger gifts from some of our larger churches. And to see that just like the widow's mite teaches us, those small gifts are just as important as the big ones. And we so appreciate the faithfulness of the churches that have given. And so what we've done is the committee got together, and as we budgeted, decided that really the expectation of 75% is quite low. And so we have reworked that number, and we believe 85% is a healthy and reasonable number to expect for income. So that gives us a projected income of around $615,000 if we, with that and with the increase in the number of churches. So between both of those, the most notable changes in the amendment are an increase to the President Pro Tem travel budget. We didn't know how much travel he'd have, and he's been to Ethiopia and Senegal already this year, and he may be going back again later this year, as well as
That
he's
would be
had
the
trainings.
expense reimbursement, or would that be a
Yes,
different line item?
exactly.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
that would be that line item. So it's increasing that $10,000.
It
Or
had
forgive me,
been
that's
25,000 and now it's
now
35,000.
to be 30. And also the presiding elders expense reimbursement is going from 100 to 130. And what we have to remember there is that the presiding elders and no one in those positions is making any personal, there's no salary for them.
Right.
They're all volunteer. And so because of that, we want to make sure we provide well for their travel, for their expenses. We're also working on adding circuit elders underneath the presiding elders. I cannot speak to what that looks like because I'm not in charge of that. But as far as funding side, there is some additional cost to that. So there's a $30,000 difference. And the reality is, you looked at our district map, there's some very large districts, especially when you look at our western parts of Kansas and Colorado and some of those other places. So to travel to a church,
Yeah.
it costs. And so we're working here to try to help provide for those resources.
So
Additionally,
briefly, let's look at how many districts there are. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 districts. So there are 15 presiding elders that we need to fund
yes.
their work appropriately. That's when you're looking at that number on page 14 of how much $130,000, that's covering the travel expenses for all of those different people who, again, you said none of them receive a salary. This is
No.
just compensating them for travel expenses.
And especially considering some of the distance that they're having to do, and they're trying
Right.
to do Zoom and they're trying to use different online resources. But at the end of the day, sometimes the ministry of presence just requires that
Absolutely.
travel. So,
Absolutely.
So I know that seems like a large number. It is, but at the same time, it's also working with essentially not volunteers, but people who are doing this on top of the other ministry that they're doing, and
Exactly. Yeah.
and out of thankfulness. And so we're working on that's really just reimbursement.
Mm-hmm.
And then the biggest additional cost is $54,000 to cover the cost of general conference delegates. We are
Right.
electing conference delegates.
Oh, that's near the bottom there. Yeah.
Yes, it is. And that's all new because that was not factored into the original budget at all.
Okay.
So also we're being asked to contribute 10%, and you'll see that as the general conference delegates majority world support.
Yeah, that's that last item. Yeah.
And we're asked to give a 10%, kind of a tithe almost, to help support the general conference delegates coming from other parts of the world, some of them, without the kind of resources we have in the U.S.
And for those who don't know, we get 10 delegates that we're sending over there. So sending 10 delegates over to Costa Rica for several days, food, board, $54,000, that should be pretty reasonable, I think.
We hope, and it's up to it. We may have less. That again, the budget is what might we spend, and my expectation with the entire budget is that we're not going to spend all this money.
Mm-hmm.
The hope is that we come in below that. We want to be the best stewards that we can be of the resources we have, but at the same time, we want to equip our conference and those doing the work of ministry to do it well. So
just
we
real
have
quick, before you go on, we're looking at the top, you have revenue, you have your potential income, and then the assumption of that being 614. Then you're looking at spending 857. But nowhere on this page is it reflected the money from the previous year that's rolled over. Is that anywhere that people can see what the total amount of money is that the conference is working with?
So the net surplus is seen at the bottom of page 13. If you go up, you'll see that 103,000. Additionally, there's some assumptions on the 2024 amended budget, which state the third right there. If you go back up scrolling, there you go. The third bullet point says the Heartland Annual Conference shall maintain no more than 12 months operating expenses and reserves.
Oh, I see it there. Yes. Okay.
And so for the 2024, with the amended budget, that could potentially be $614,000. And that means that if, we have needs or changes in income, or we have, an economic crisis or something like that, that we will not hang on to millions and millions of dollars like the denomination that we came out of did,
Right.
but we will hold on to 1 year's, up to 1 year's. And right now, I know that we had some not reserves really, but some surplus come in from last year, but our accounts are not looking like we have a year. We're not close to $615,000. Like I said, we had $252,000 come in this year, of which 193, I think, was for connectional funding. So that's this year. And then, of course, we've had expenses. We've been paying salaries. We've been paying for reimbursements and, just other regular expenses, as well as annual conference.
Yeah.
So
no, I'm glad you highlighted that bullet point. I think a lot of people will take comfort in knowing that there is a policy that you're just not going to amass all this wealth and sit on it.
Yeah.
So, all right, Brad, anything? Oh, go ahead. What were you going to say?
No, I was going to say, and if we get to a point where we have that 615 or whatever that annual budget is, and we meet that, then we'd start to look at, okay, so do we need to change how that percentage, or do we, give rebates or something like that? But that's a bridge to cross when we get to it. At this point, we're still trying to figure out how to make sure that we've got a well-sorted budget. And then, so there's really three things we're bringing before the annual conference: the 2024 amended budget, 2025 proposed budget. The 2025 proposed budget's really very similar to the
oh, there it is. It's on the page. That would be page 15.
Next page.
Yeah.
And it really reflects at that 85% number a proposed income of $662,000. So it's a little bit more. If we were actually to rework this number, considering we've actually had churches still come in, these are still conservative numbers. They really are.
Yeah.
It reflects some cost of living adjustments, or with going from 2024 to 2025. It reflects the fact that we don't have we won't have the general conference. Looking at that, sorry, I'm bringing that up.
Yeah, we're not going to be paying for another general conference in 2025.
At the same time, we have a general conference line item down there of 20,000. What we're looking to do is, if the money is there, to possibly put, so that we're not trying to fund all general conference delegates in a year. We're trying to put some money away every year to hopefully mean that we're not trying to take entire. So that's the intent. Intent of 20. The other thing is, we are expecting that they might call a special called general conference in 2026.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
To elect bishops. And if they're going to do that, then that means that 1 year we have it, the next year we don't, and then the next year we have to send delegates again. And if we're going to do that, then we need to be smart about that. So
exactly. Yeah.
So, and the other thing is the $54,000. One other note: we know that we're sending 10 delegates. We may well send more.
Oh, we're going back up to this year's budget, $54,000 for all of our general conference.
One other point to make is that we're not trying to spend $54,000 on 10 delegates. That's way more than we expect to spend per delegate. What we were thinking is, we know that there's another allocation of delegates coming out on June 3rd or 2nd. It's coming up real soon, but it's right after general conference or annual conference. So in order to, we can't pass a budget after annual conference ends. So we have to pass a budget that would cover the potential of having more delegates. So looking at what might we possibly get, we put together a budget that we thought would be reasonable if we end up having the max number of delegates we might get. And we have no idea if we're going to get, we don't expect to double that number of 10, but we know we may end up with more. It's possible. So hope we do, but who knows?
Yeah. All right, we've covered, I think, the only financial pages in the packet. Are there any other things to comment on that you think people would be interested in, either policy-wise or?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
There's one more, and that would be on page 16, the next page down after 2025 budget.
Okay.
And it's that clergy compensation minimum recommendations. Okay. And we worked off another annual conference who did who also did a similar document, because we recognize that churches are the system for hiring pastors is different in the Heartland, or in the Global Methodist Church, compared to the system we came out of. There's no guaranteed appointments, and pastors are offered that position, but they're not required to take it.
Right.
And so because of that, churches need to make, they have to make their budgets and their compensation. And we want to make sure that those are fair to the pastor and fair to the church.
Right.
We will not mandate. There is no mandate or minimum required compensation like like the system we came out of,
Right.
this is a huge difference. And
Yeah.
I want to make sure that, and the first line of this document is the following are guidelines, not mandates. And I cannot highlight that enough.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty much just briefly summarizing this document. We just said, look, reflecting the economy of our area, you know, conferences out on the coast where cost of living is higher are probably going to have a higher full-time minimum than here in the Midwest. But we said that we recommend a church that has a full-time pastor, that the salary, just the salary, be around $42,000.
Right.
And I expect that will be adjusted or at least considered annually for the annual conference to receive, because we want to keep that current. But what we're trying to do is this is a starting point for churches who are trying to figure out what to pay a pastor, especially with the transition, and churches that are near minimum or trying to figure things out. That's just a number that helps. They don't have to offer that much, but the reality is we also want them to understand it's just a good idea to have that number out there. Also, on top of that, we understand there will be other additional benefits like health insurance, vacation, continuing education, housing allowance, and more, depending on if there's a parsonage or not. So that's something I want to explain. I don't want people to think that that's a mandate. It's not. But at the same time, it's a helpful guideline. That's all.
Yeah. No, it's a great document. I really enjoyed reading it because right on the front end, you have a whole paragraph to, we can't make you, we're not going to make you. This is based on just trying to offer helpful advice. And I hope that surely it will be received in that way. I think it's really helpful just to have a ballpark figure to aim at for a lot of people. So I appreciate it.
Definitely.
All right, brother, we're coming up on 30 minutes. Anything else that should be said?
I am thankful to all the churches that have been faithful to the Heartland Global Methodist Church Annual Conference. I put those words in the wrong order, but I'm so thankful for the faithfulness of the churches to our annual conference, for the giving that they've given, for the stewardship, responsibility, and the trust that they put into us. I know we're building that trust out. Trust is earned, not given.
Right.
And so we come at this from a position that we want to be good stewards. We have some really great people on the FNA. I am impressed with the wealth of wisdom that our annual conference offers. And I'm thankful for the ability to work with people who really have a heart to serve Jesus. And my hope is that this budget and these reports are offered in a way that is open, but also in a way that they're well received. So hope you'll see the heart behind them. And I appreciate the opportunity to share.
If you guys have additional questions for Brad, go to annual conference and he will be there, and be very polite to him. And he is a resource for us. Make sure he feels appreciated, because this is not a job a lot of people are just falling all over themselves to do. And it's important that the people who choose to serve are feeling appreciated. So I appreciate you, Brad. I'm looking forward to being with you this weekend. And I too am excited about the work that we're doing. And I guess we'll be talking over the next couple of days. Thank you so much for joining me.
Certainly, Jeffrey. Thank you. And I'll see you soon.
Yes, sir. All right. Bye, friends.